and welcome back to the Shoogly Shed, and Happy New Year. It is the 1st of January today, 2024. Got a lot to do this year, in particular with my XJR. So I thought this was as good a time as any, basically a little bit of downtime on the 1st of January to tear down this engine, and then kind of get a plan for where we're going with it and see what condition the innards are like, and then also think about what kind of coatings I want to get done to the casings, parts that need replaced, yada yada yada. The usual basically when it comes to an engine strip down and rebuild. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. It's a big old lump of an engine, but yeah, take it piece by piece and we'll get there. Right, I already took out the valve cover bolts when I was taking the engine out the frame. So valve cover off. Camshafts look alright. No obvious damage or wear. Not that I can see anyway, which is a good sign. It means it's all getting oil and it's not overheating or anything like that. Yep, happy days, happy with that. So next thing is to start removing the journal bolts, lift the journals, lift the camshafts, timing chain, all that gubbins. Right, let's get a socket. One of the dowels just went down the plug hole. Just as well I'm taking the engine apart. For fuck's sake. Oh god. She's a tight one. There we go. Right, so journal's off, cam chain tensioner off, basically means that the cam chain is now loose, so now we can lift the camshafts out. That's the exhaust side, and the inlet side as well. going to commit a cardinal sin that'll make a lot of people wince. I'm taking the engine apart, it doesn't matter if I drop it down the cam chain tunnel. Right, soft face mallet, going to give it a wee tappy tappy around all the edges. Being careful not to break the fins. Right, after some grade A jiggery pokery, the head's loose. I'll show you in a wee minute up close, but there's two studs at the front and two at the back. The two at the front clearly get all the crud off the road. They're steel studs going into an aluminium block. Obviously they have corroded and seized, and I've also sheared both of them off, and yeah, they'll need to come out, but we can deal with that another time. Not too worried about that currently. Main thing is that the head's loose, so hopefully we can just lift it off now with a bit more wiggles. She wants to go. I've been here before. I do not want to get my face in the way this time. But she's not for shifting. Big multi-layered gasket. This time. Yeah! Good grief. Right, so this is our cylinder head. It's actually, I think I can get it to focus. It's actually not too bad, it's quite sooty. That's just oil from when I turned it over there. But as far as valves go, they look fine. No excessive pitting or anything like that, nothing burnt. This, if you remember correctly, this was the cylinder that had some kind of liquid down it, water or something like that, when we did the bore scope episode. And I think that's quite plain to see by this weird kind of corrosion around here. But it does just feel minimal and sort of surface corrosion, so I'm hoping that we might get away with that. Get this all cleaned up and should be okay. The gasket's obviously been failing at the front edge, where the stuff's just crept in. So just as well we're tearing the engine down, frankly. It probably was on the way out, about to blow a head gasket. These are the studs I was talking about. As you can see, they've been sheared off, but basically they locate into two like tubes on the front of the cylinder, and basically they just seized in place. A whole lot of corrosion came out when I managed to free them, and they'll need to get removed from the head and renewed. They're basically, that's the ones at the back of the engine that are obviously protected from the crud, and they are in much better condition, so that's just a bit of a design flaw there. But yeah, I'll need to address that problem at some point, but I'm not worrying about it right now. And the barrels, now this is the bit I was talking about with those studs. Focus in here. So the studs go into there. This one was cracked and subsequently broke off when I was trying to free this, but I mean, you can see the amount of corrosion here that has caused that to happen, so that will need repairing. I'll either do that myself or maybe get the block off to an engine specialist. I could probably try and aluminium weld that, but I don't want to warp the block. There's different, there's proper ways to go about welding blocks, so I might leave that up to a professional. Down the barrels, what we're looking at, that's not too bad. That's not too bad either. All sooty, obviously. That one, again, just a bit sooty. the crap that's fallen down into them has just come off as I've taken the cylinder head off, and that looks okay to me too. So just as well we're getting an engine rebuild, because like I say, the gaskets were definitely failing along the front edge here, but it's all going to get stripped down, vapor blasted, and cylinders honed, and new piston rings and things, so hopefully we'll be good to go once it's all stripped and back together. Yeah, so next thing is to try and get the barrel off. Okay, notice the subtle costume change, different hat. It is a couple of days later because I basically couldn't get the cylinder off. Problem was, and I've had this before, is that the metal studs had seized basically and were preventing it sliding off the studs. I have now got all the studs out. This one is loose but won't come out fully, and I'll show you why. So that stuff in there is a wee pile of corrosion. I can see that coming out there. There you go. That is all corroded, salt off the roads, corroded into the steel block, steel stud, sorry, into the aluminium block. But if we take that bolt out now, these should just lift off. Fingers crossed. It's off. Right, all the studs are out, and that little stub, which will be exceptionally hot, is also out. A little bit of heat obviously from the weld probably helped there, but then I had to weld that big nut on to get that off. But as you can see, it's full of corrosion. There's still a big lip of corrosion in there. There was absolutely no way I was going to get them out without a bit of a struggle. That's alright, those two front studs are available just as well because they're both wrecked. However, my main thing was just trying not to damage the casing and the block, but get the thing off complete, if that makes sense, which we've done. So they're 15-20 quid each, those studs. That's not the end of the world to replace them. Main thing, like I say, is making sure that the threads in the block are okay. I'll run a tap through these just to clean them all up. This is all going to go away, get vapor blasted anyway, so not worried about that just now. But that's basically the top end completely dismantled. I've got the pistons here on the con rods, and I'm glad to have gotten to this stage because that took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Anyway, onwards. Don't forget to change your oil, kids. Nasty. Okay, I'm now ready to split the crankcases. I need to take all the upper crankcase bolts out, then all the lower ones. Usually I would take them out and put them in order in a cardboard template so that I know what way they go back in, because there are lots of different lengths. But I'm probably going to send these away to be coated because they're a bit crusty. So that's not really going to help me, because I'm obviously going to get them all muddled up while they go away and get coated. So I will have a bit of a task ahead of me to try and figure out which bolt goes where, but I'm admitting that that is probably just a hurdle I'm going to have to cross later on. That's future Ewan's problem. Right, so that's the top half with the crankshaft and conrods, and the bottom half with the gearbox basically. So all I've got left to do is to take the gear shafts out, crankshaft out, etc. and then the casings are ready to go away to get vapor blasted. Right, I'm going to wrap this episode up here because I think it could possibly get away from me if I film absolutely every little bit. Lifting the crankshaft out and things isn't very exciting. But yeah, that is more or less the engine stripped down. Like I say, I've just got a few things to lift out, and then the casings can go away to get vapor blasted. While they are getting that done, I'm going to buy a lot of new internals to go in it, lots of bearings to replace, and seals and gaskets and all the whatnot. So yeah, I've got my work cut out to kind of get all that gathered together in time for the casings coming back from finishings, and then basically the assembly is the opposite of disassembly. Just has to all go back together. I've got tolerances and things to measure in various different parts of the engine, but again, it's not very complicated. It's just kind of laborious and time consuming. Yeah, it's been a bit of a chore to get to this stage of this engine stripped down, but stripping down always, to me, takes a wee bit more effort than putting it back together, because stripping it down, you're contending with rounded bolts and seized bolts and nuts and all sorts, and that kind of just eats into your time, and it can quickly run away from you. Something that should only really take a couple of hours to get an engine like this stripped down to the casings, like in this case, has taken a couple of days. Anyway, I'm yabbering on as usual. Please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'm not sure what the next video will be on, possibly some other bits and pieces that I need to get worked on while the casings are away getting vapor blasted. But yeah, until then, take care, a goodbye. There's that pesky dowel I dropped earlier.